There's a fire inside you. Maybe it's been buried under years of fear, self-doubt, or other people's expectations, but it's still burning. And today, you either let it die or you feed it. Because the truth is simple. You were not born to be average. You were born to become something extraordinary. But that version of you, the best version, doesn't come easy. It doesn't come through comfort. It comes through obsession. Obsession isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's the one thing that separates those who dream from those who do. While most people are busy trying to balance their lives, trying to fit in, the greats, the unshakable ones, are obsessively, unapologetically committed to becoming who they were meant to be. That's the difference. That's the edge. And if you don't have it yet, it's time to build it. Potential is one of the most overvalued traits in today's world. It sounds impressive. It makes people feel good when they hear it. You've got so much potential, but the truth is, potential means absolutely nothing without action. The world doesn't pay you for what you could do. It pays you for what you actually do. And that's where most people fall short. They think being talented is enough. They think being smart, creative, or capable is the end game. It's not. In fact, it's just the starting line. There are millions of people walking around with unbelievable potential, people with the raw ability to change the world, to create art, to build empires, to leave legacies, but they never act on it. They sit on the sidelines. They talk about what they could do, what they might do, and what they plan to do, but years go by and nothing changes. Why? Because potential without execution is just wasted energy. It doesn't matter how much talent you have if you don't have the work ethic to back it up. It doesn't matter how big your dreams are if you don't take real steps every single day to bring them to life. You've probably met people who have far less talent than you, far less intelligence, and far fewer resources. But they're still miles ahead. They're winning, they're evolving, they're building. And the reason is simple. They move, they act. They may not have started with a clear plan, but they committed to the process. They failed, learned, adjusted, and kept going. And that consistency, that persistence made all the difference because action compounds. One disciplined step each day multiplies over time. It creates momentum, and momentum builds confidence, clarity, and results. What separates the doers from the dreamers is not luck or privilege. It's obsession with progress. The people who win in life are those who treat their potential like a responsibility. They understand it's not enough to know you can be great. You must prove it through action. They wake up with urgency. They show up when it's hard. They put in work when no one is watching. While others are waiting for motivation, they're building discipline. While others are making excuses, they're making progress. And it's not about perfection. You're not supposed to get it right every time, but you are supposed to show up every time. The key is to become obsessed with movement, to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. To measure your life, not by what you think you can do, but by what you're actually doing. Your potential will only matter when it turns into practice. Your dreams will only matter when they turn into discipline. And your goals will only become reality when you refuse to let them live in your imagination any longer. If you know deep down that there's more inside you, more greatness, more strength, more impact, then the time to act is now. Because every moment you wait, that potential fades a little more. Every day you delay, someone else is outworking you. And it's not because they're better. It's because they're moving. They're grinding. They're choosing discipline over distraction. And that decision, made daily, is what transforms ordinary people into legends. Potential is only the seed. If you don't water it, nurture it, and fight for it, it dies. If you want to become who you were meant to be, you have to step out of the comfort zone of possibility and step into the arena of reality, where work, struggle, and consistency turn potential into power. The version of yourself that keeps you stuck is the one that must be eliminated. It's the voice inside that says, maybe later, I'm not ready yet, or what if I fail? That version is your enemy. It disguises itself as comfort, logic, even self-care. But what it's really doing is sabotaging your progress. You were never meant to stay the same. Life is about evolution. Every day you either step forward into growth or retreat back into safety. And it's always a choice. The problem is that most people don't realize that holding on to their old identity is the very thing keeping them from the future they crave. That old version of you, the one that seeks validation, that avoids confrontation, that gets distracted easily, that makes excuses, it has to go. Because that person was built from your pain, your fears, your insecurities, and your past conditioning. That version of you was created for survival, not success. But now you're in a different chapter. And what worked in survival mode will never work in building your best life. You can't take that weak, hesitant, uncertain self into a future that demands courage, discipline, and conviction. People say they want to change, but they don't realize that change doesn't mean adding something new to who you are. It means subtracting everything that no longer serves you. It means killing the parts of you that waste time, that feed off distraction, that lower your standards. Growth isn't just about building new habits. It's about demolishing old patterns. The longer you protect the old you, the longer you delay becoming who you were truly meant to be. That version of you that procrastinates, that overthinks, that hesitates when opportunity shows up, that's the version you have to bury. This isn't about being harsh. It's about being honest. The version of you that complains instead of creates, that waits for permission instead of taking initiative, that shrinks back instead of standing tall, that person is costing you your future. And until you get sick and tired of being that version, nothing will change. You have to reach a point where staying the same becomes more painful than growing. Only then will you have the fire required to break the cycle. People think transformation is glamorous. They imagine leveling up as some kind of inspiring, exciting journey. But the truth is, becoming your best self is violent. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. You have to confront your own lies. You have to look in the mirror and admit that your excuses are not valid. Your fears are not facts, and your comfort zone is a trap. You must tear down the identity you've been clinging to for years, and that takes guts. That takes obsession. But the transformation begins the moment you say, I'm done living like this. Not next week, not when it's convenient, now. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop explaining your failure. You stop settling for the bare minimum. You become your own standard. You become the person who shows up no matter what, the person who does the work whether they feel like it or not, the person who holds themselves accountable without excuses. It's not that you're not capable. It's that you've been too attached to who you've always been. And that version was never built for where you're going. So it's time to burn it down, every lazy habit, every fear-based decision, every self-sabotaging tendency, and build something new, something bold, something powerful. You don't become great by staying safe. You become great by deciding once and for all that the old you is no longer welcome in your future. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Most people spend their entire lives running from discomfort, avoiding hard conversations, dodging challenges, quitting anything that stretches them beyond what feels easy or natural. But if you want to evolve into the best version of yourself, you must stop treating discomfort like something to fear and start seeing it as your greatest opportunity. Because nothing meaningful in your life will ever come from comfort. Growth is born in resistance, not relaxation. You don't grow when you're coasting. You grow when you're being pushed, tested, stretched to your limits. When you feel awkward, uncertain, nervous, that's a signal you're stepping into something new. That's the edge of your current self. And if you want to move past that edge, you have to push through what feels uncomfortable. This is how progress works. It demands that you stretch your identity, expand your habits, and confront your limits. The problem is most people stop the moment it starts to hurt. They assume discomfort means they're doing something wrong, when in reality, it's proof they're on the right path. Change isn't supposed to feel natural because what's natural is staying the same. Growth requires unnatural effort. It requires you to lean into what your old self would run from. The gym is a perfect metaphor. When you lift weights, the goal is not to feel comfortable. You're supposed to feel the burn. You're supposed to feel resistance. That resistance breaks down the muscle so it can rebuild stronger. The same rule applies to your mind, your character, your life. If you avoid the burn, you stay weak. If you embrace it, you grow. But most people want results without the struggle. They want transformation without the tension, and that's not how it works. The pain is not punishment, it's preparation. It's part of the process that turns ordinary people into extraordinary versions of themselves. You have to rewire the way you interpret discomfort. Instead of backing away, you lean in. Instead of seeing it as a sign to quit, you see it as a sign to continue. Because the most important changes in your life are on the other side of what makes you uncomfortable. That's where your discipline lives. That's where your breakthroughs are hiding. And if you never walk through that fire, you never access your full power. Every time you choose ease over effort, you rob yourself of progress. Every time you retreat to comfort, you reinforce the version of you that will never reach the next level. It's not about being fearless. It's about doing it scared. It's not about feeling ready. It's about taking action before the confidence arrives. Because confidence doesn't come first, results do. And results are only possible when you stay committed, even when the process feels heavy, awkward, or overwhelming. That's where this shift happens, not in perfect moments, but in the messy, frustrating, exhausting ones. That's where you become resilient. That's where you build grit. That's where you train yourself to stop running from the work and start embracing it with obsession. Stop chasing what feels good. Start chasing what builds you. You won't always like it. It won't always feel fair. But every second you spend in that discomfort is a second you are becoming the person you were meant to be. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. And every time you choose growth over ease, you are declaring war on the old version of yourself. That is how you evolve. That is how you rise. That is how you win. Your environment is either feeding your greatness or feeding your weakness. You cannot grow into the best version of yourself while being surrounded by mediocrity, distractions, and people who are comfortable being average. It doesn't matter how strong your willpower is. If you are consistently immersed in an environment that doesn't challenge you, doesn't inspire you, and doesn't hold you accountable, you will eventually settle. Humans adapt to their surroundings. If your surroundings are full of low standards, then over time your standards will lower too. The people you associate with most, the habits you repeat, the conversations you entertain, all of it is shaping your mindset, your energy, and your identity. If you want to become the best version of you, you need to be intentional about the world you place yourself in. You can't be surrounded by people who make excuses and expect to become a person of execution. You can't be immersed in negativity and expect to maintain a positive, powerful mindset. Growth requires you to construct an environment that stretches you, one that makes you uncomfortable in the right ways. You should feel challenged. You should feel inspired. You should feel slightly out of place because that discomfort is what forces you to level up. Being the smartest person in the room feels good, but it keeps you stagnant. You need to be in rooms where you're humbled, where you're learning, where you're reminded there's more to become. Sometimes this means cutting people off, not out of arrogance or hate, but out of necessity. Not everyone who is part of your past can walk with you into your future. There will be friends, even family, who won't understand your drive, your discipline, your obsession. They will mock your commitment. They'll call you too serious, too intense, or too focused. But that's because your growth exposes their comfort. Your ambition highlights their laziness. And instead of rising with you, they'll try to pull you back down. That's when you have to choose. Be accepted by the crowd or become who you were meant to be. Your environment also includes what you consume, the content you watch, the music you listen to, the books you read. It's all shaping your brain. If you're feeding your mind with nonsense, gossip, and distractions, don't be surprised when your actions reflect that. But if you're consistently feeding yourself wisdom, strategy, and purpose, your life will begin to align with those values. The mind becomes what it consumes. Your output is always a result of your input. If you want powerful results, you need powerful influences. Start auditing everything around you. Look at your daily patterns. Who are you talking to the most? What are you listening to during your free time? Where are you spending your energy? Because all of it is either moving you forward or holding you back. Most people don't have a discipline problem. They have an environment problem. They've built lives filled with easy access to their worst habits and constant proximity to low energy individuals. Then they wonder why they feel stuck. They're trying to grow in soil that's poisoned with doubt, laziness, and distraction. The best version of you is not born in comfort and familiarity. It's born in friction, in accountability, in being surrounded by people and energy that constantly remind you of what you're capable of. If you want to elevate, your environment must elevate with you. That means choosing alignment over attachment. That means walking away from what feels safe and moving toward what demands your growth. You must place yourself in situations where excellence is normal, where discipline is the standard, and where greatness is expected. Because the more time you spend in those environments, the more naturally that version of you will emerge. The reason most people never experience their true potential is because they spend their entire lives reacting instead of creating. They wait for the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances, or some kind of external push before they take control of their lives. But that perfect moment never comes because life isn't designed to hand you opportunities on a silver platter. If you want something extraordinary, you have to create it yourself. You can't wait to be chosen. You have to choose yourself. You have to stop living on autopilot and start building your life with intentionality, clarity, and purpose. The best version of you isn't born by accident. It's crafted through daily decisions, through deliberate actions that align with who you want to become. You must realize that your life is your responsibility. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you your dream life. That level of freedom and fulfillment is earned brick by brick, habit by habit, day after day. You can't outsource this process. You can't skip the grind and expect to shine. The truth is, every single day is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every decision, what you eat, how you spend your time, who you talk to, what you consume, all of it either takes you closer to or further from the person you say you want to be, and the gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with consistency, not luck. People think building a powerful life requires massive shifts, but in reality, it's the small, consistent actions that change everything. Waking up earlier to work on your goals, saying no to distractions, practicing discipline even when no one is watching, choosing growth over comfort. These actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they compound. And what you repeat, you become. You can't keep showing up with average effort and expect extraordinary results. The life you want is built in the details, in how you do the little things. And those little things must be done with excellence, not just when you feel like it, but especially when you don't. You have to stop outsourcing your identity to your past. Who you've been does not have to dictate who you become. Just because you've failed before doesn't mean you're a failure. Just because you were lazy or inconsistent before doesn't mean you're incapable of becoming disciplined now. Transformation starts with a decision. The decision to no longer accept a life that doesn't reflect your potential. From that moment forward, you stop reacting to life and start creating it. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on discipline. You stop chasing comfort and start chasing growth. This level of responsibility is uncomfortable for most people because it means there's no one left to blame. You can't blame your parents, your boss, your circumstances, or your past. Once you accept that your future is in your hands, you also accept that every excuse has to die, and that's powerful. Because the moment you take full ownership of your life is the moment you unlock your true power. You realize that if it's up to you, then nothing can stop you but you. You begin to operate differently. You begin to walk with a sense of purpose, urgency, and discipline that others can't understand. Being obsessed with becoming the best version of yourself means showing up with intention every single day. It means designing your life around your values, your goals, and your potential. You don't leave things to chance. You wake up every day with a plan and you execute that plan regardless of how you feel. You begin to see yourself not just as someone who's trying, but as someone who is becoming. You move from wishful thinking to intentional living. That's the shift that changes everything. One of the most powerful choices you will ever make is to replace comparison with competition. Not competition with others, but with who you were yesterday. Too many people waste energy looking left and right, measuring their worth, their progress, and their potential by what someone else is doing. They scroll through social media, comparing their real life to someone else's highlight reel, and they forget that the only race that matters is the one between who they are now and who they are becoming. The problem with comparison is that it robs you of focus. It distracts you from your personal path and plants seeds of self-doubt, insecurity, and jealousy that slowly kill your momentum. But when you shift that energy toward competing with your past self, everything changes. Your focus sharpens, your discipline strengthens. You begin to measure your days not by someone else's standard, but by your own progress. This mindset creates a powerful inner drive because now you're not just working to be better than others. You're working to be better than you were last week, last month, last year. You become your own benchmark. You start paying attention to your own habits, your own patterns, your own potential. You wake up with a sense of purpose that's rooted in personal growth, not public approval. And that's where real confidence is born. Not from being better than others, but from knowing that you're becoming better than you were. That's the kind of progress no one can take from you. That's the kind of success that feels deeply fulfilling. When you embrace self-competition, every failure becomes feedback. Every mistake becomes a lesson. You stop avoiding discomfort and start using it as fuel. You don't get discouraged by how far you have to go. You get excited by how far you've already come. That's the beauty of this mindset. It creates momentum. Each day builds on the last. Each small win adds to your confidence. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to expect more from yourself. You stop settling for average effort because you know what you're capable of when you stay consistent. And the more you grow, the more you crave growth. Progress becomes addictive. You stop chasing perfection and start chasing improvement. This also frees you from the toxic trap of seeking validation. When you're focused on your own journey, you don't need applause to feel proud. You don't need recognition to feel worthy. Your fulfillment isn't based on likes, comments, or external praise. It's based on the internal pride of knowing you're doing the work. That kind of validation is unshakable because it doesn't come from others. It comes from within. And that's what makes it powerful. It can't be taken away. It's built on effort, on discipline, on the truth of who you're becoming behind the scenes. Competing with yourself also teaches you to be patient. You stop rushing the process. You understand that greatness is not built overnight. It's built day by day, rep by rep, choice by choice. You begin to respect the process because you're no longer focused on instant results. You're focused on long-term transformation. You're not just trying to win the day, you're trying to win the decade. And that long view gives you the strength to stay committed even when progress feels slow, because you know that the path to your highest self is not a straight line. It's a journey of rising, falling, adjusting, and rising again. When you become obsessed with beating your own best, you never run out of motivation. There's always another level to unlock. There's always another area to refine. You are no longer intimidated by the success of others. You're inspired by it because now you see their greatness as proof of what's possible, not as a threat. You stop seeing life as a competition to win and start seeing it as a canvas to improve. That's the mindset that leads to lasting greatness. True transformation doesn't happen when life is easy or when things are going your way. It happens when everything is against you, when you're tired, when you feel like quitting, but you show up anyway. The person you want to become is forged in the fire of consistency, not just consistency when it's convenient, but consistency when it's hard, boring, frustrating, and lonely. That's when the best version of you starts to form. Anyone can work hard for a day. Anyone can be focused for a week. But the ones who separate themselves are those who learn to fall in love with the process, even when results are invisible. They don't chase instant gratification. They stay loyal to the habits, the systems, the grind that creates long-term success. The best don't just rise when the lights are on. They rise when no one is watching. What most people don't understand is that greatness isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is rare, but consistency is what builds the future. You don't become the best version of yourself because you had a few productive days. You become it because you kept showing up long after the excitement faded. You kept pushing when others gave up. You built momentum brick by brick while everyone else was waiting for the perfect moment. That's the secret. Don't wait for the moment. Create it. And you create it by showing up, regardless of how you feel, because your emotions don't define your future. Your actions do. The power of consistency is that it compounds. It starts small, almost invisible. You begin waking up early. You start training daily. You read, study, practice, refine. At first, there's no applause, no progress you can see, but over time, your habits start to shape your identity. You stop being someone who tries and start becoming someone who executes. You start carrying yourself differently, thinking differently, living differently. Consistency creates alignment between your actions and your values, your goals and your reality. It teaches you self-trust because you begin to believe in your own ability to follow through. That belief is foundational. Because once you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. And in that process, you learn patience. Because consistency teaches you that results aren't always immediate, but they are always inevitable if you don't quit. You begin to respect the journey. You stop measuring progress by the outcome and start measuring it by effort. You no longer ask, did it work today? You ask, did I work today? Because you understand that consistency is the bridge between the dream and the result. It's the grind that turns potential into reality. It's the unglamorous work, the repetitions, the early mornings, the quiet nights that ultimately create a life worth living. There's also something powerful about becoming the kind of person who doesn't negotiate with excuses. When you're truly committed to being the best version of yourself, you stop justifying laziness. You stop rationalizing procrastination, and you stop quitting when it gets tough. You stop seeking motivation and start mastering habits. You build systems around your vision. You create routines that remove friction and make success automatic. You no longer rely on willpower alone. You use structure, focus, and accountability. And over time, this turns you into a different kind of human, not just someone with goals, but someone with unshakable standards. Most people give up not because they lack talent, but because they lack consistency. They fall in love with the result, but never build a relationship with the process. But when you fall in love with the work itself, when the training becomes sacred, when the reading becomes routine, when the grind becomes your identity, everything changes. You begin to rise without effort, perform without pressure, and grow without limits. The compound effect kicks in. The results start to show. But more than that, the person you become along the way is someone you're proud of, not because you're perfect, but because you're committed, you're consistent, And that's what separates winners from dreamers. The decision to keep showing up no matter what. You were not made for a mediocre life. You were made for more. You were made to rise, to lead, to become something no one in your bloodline ever became. So stop waiting. Stop doubting. Stop settling. Be obsessed with becoming the best version of you, because the world needs that version and you deserve to meet that version. This isn't a motivational speech. This is your call to war. And you were born to win it.